Hello, this is Greg Allison with Green Gregs coming to you on the 30th of March, 22. Time on deck is 1500 hours Central Daylight Time. I have a special guest tonight, Lieutenant Colonel Jay Block, U.S. Air Force retired. Colonel Block used to do nuclear weapon systems. He's got 21 years experience in nuclear weapon systems of the U.S. Air Force. He's worked for the Space Command. He's worked the 45th Space Wing, which controls space launches out of Florida, which I've had to interface with for range approval for things that we work on with NASA and other programs. And among other things, Colonel Block is running for governor of the state of New Mexico. So I just had a congressional, an Army nuclear weapons systems expert who was the Assistant Secretary of the Army, who running for Congress, and now I've got Jay Block here, Colonel Block, who is running for governor of the state of New Mexico. So I'm excited to hear this news and bring him as our special guest tonight. My friends, I bring you interviewees like nobody else here on YouTube, and I bring you topics that you need to know about so you can keep your eyes wide open and head on a swivel to know what's coming at us in these crazy times we live in. So you'll know to prepare, to prep, and pass this on to your friends. But we also talk about things that you can do. Unlike other channels, they just say, stick your head in the sand or grab a bunch of beans and bullets. What I say is there's many other things we can also do to assist that and to try to mitigate some of the catastrophes that might fall on our head. Not to say that we can mitigate everything, but we can sure do a lot of work in that area, like getting our power grid hardened. That's my podium placard back there, because I chaired 2 power grid defense conferences. And my friends, so subscribe to my channel, bang the notification bell, and click all. And by the way, you do need to prep. I highly encourage, with all the crazy stuff going on in the world right now, you can go out and buy those beans and dried rice and watch my videos and eating wild from the trees and the weeds. But I also encourage you to consider prepwithgreg.com, because at prepwithgreg.com right now, we got a great special, and I can't say how long it's going to last with the inflation we got right now, but you can get a 25-year lasting supply of food, 3 months worth of it, with $150 off special. $150 off. This is 2,000 calories a day, breakfast, lunch, and dinner with some drinks and desserts. Make you a winner. A lot of our competitors, though, what they call a daily rations, 800 calories. You will starve to death on that, my friends. This is real food. It's freeze-dried. You can see this is a 2-week supply, and I'm tossing around like it's nothing. A kid can carry this, so you can bug out with it real easily. The buckets are sealed. I popped this one open. You can bury these underground, unlike your canning jars, which you should be canning your own food and growing a garden, by the way. You can throw these in your backpack, because those pouches are sealed too. It's awesome. It's awesome way to prep and be ready for the long term. And by the time you get around to using that stuff, if you hadn't had to use it in an emergency, guess what? It's been an investment in the future. The way food inflation is going. Prepwithgreg.com. Check it out. Now, my friends, let me tell you a little bit about Colonel Block. Colonel Block, I said, he had 21 years in the nuclear field. He's been an ICBM. Let's see. Well, you were a missile. What did you do in the ICBM world? You were a mission commander, or?
I was a missileer, ICBM launch officer.
Launch officer, that was it. He was stationed at Ascension Island Air Force Base as part of the 45th Space Wing Command, which is 8 degrees south of the equator. He's done a tour with the headquarters of Space Command in Afghanistan.
Peterson, no, Colorado Springs, and then I went to Afghanistan.
Okay. I was about to say, I don't know how y'all got in Afghanistan with that. So, but you did a tour in Afghanistan, right? So
I did.
All right, so I got those mixed up. All right. So anyway, he's been with Minot Missile Base. So he's been a lot of the places that are targets if we get a war. He's been directly involved and has had his hands on the systems that we would launch as a counterstrike, hopefully, if we ever got hit. Question might be, can we do that? He's also been a commander in Europe. And so he's been quite all over the nuclear force structure of the Air Force for several years. And pardon me for botching that a little bit there. I got my notes crossed. But anyway, so this is a highly qualified speaker. So, and he's running for governor. So we got a little bit to talk about in both accords with his experience. So we'll just start out. Now, I know you're retired, and so you're not in the intel circle anymore like you would be if you were still in the service. But just on what you're seeing, what do you think the prospects are right now that we might get into a nuclear war?
Well, I think anytime that you have conflict with a major nuclear power in Europe next to NATO countries, I think the risk is enhanced greatly, especially with the amount of tactical weapons that the Russians have that did not come under the INF Treaty in 1987 that was signed. Those got rid of the intermediate range missiles, the ground launched cruise missiles in Europe at the time. Reagan put those in and brought the Russians to the table. You know, today the Russians have a fair amount of tactical weapons that they can put on fighters and generate those rather quickly. And they still have a very significant strategic rocket force. Most of their nuclear capabilities is concentrated on their land-based missiles, and those are always on alert, very similar to what we have with Minuteman IIIs on alert right now in Montana, North Dakota, Wyoming, Colorado, Nebraska.
Well, what I worry about is a surprise attack. You know, there's talks how they could go in with hypersonic missiles and take out our radars that are looking north. We used to call it the dew line. I understand it's got a new name and a whole new system out there now. And that they are, or they could EMP us and take out a lot of that, so that we couldn't see the main missiles as they're coming over the horizon. There might be an attack on our radars looking over the poles, followed by an EMP, followed by their missiles. If we took a full-blown first strike from Russia, we wouldn't have much to retaliate with, and we might not be able to even communicate with any of our nuclear forces to give an emergency action message. I think we need to rethink our nuclear force structure. What do you, or at least put some of these guys on DEFCON 2 right now, and so they'd be out at sea. Let's say our submarines could be out at sea and ready to go. What do you think?
Well, we do have submarines. We have Ohio-class submarines out at sea all the time in their patrol areas. So those are on, I'll call them alert. It takes a little time to spin up their missiles. Those are Trident missiles. Our land-based missiles are always ready to go. They're not on hair trigger alert. You hear that term a lot, but there are numerous safeguards built into the ICBM Minuteman system, whether it is the hardware, software, or even including the personnel that are operating the system, maintaining the system, and securing the system day to day. Because day to day in this country, we use nuclear weapons every single day to deter, assure, and dissuade. And I have complete confidence in the young men and women that do that job around the world every day, the nuclear business.
Well, I've been in the service. I'm sure we got really good people on job there, on task. You know, like I said, I've dealt with that kind of stuff. I've even worked missile defense myself. So these are things that I'm familiar with. I'm glad to know that they're out there. I do worry, though, that our structures were hardened to older standards for EMP. And so I'm concerned as to whether or not we can have the effective communications, get those emergency action alerts out to the messages out to the subs should this happen. And you've seconded basically what Dr. Peter V Pry had told us earlier, that these submarines, the Trident missiles are not the Trident missiles are not long-range intercontinental ballistic missiles. You have to get them out at sea, you know, closer to the target nations to be able to strike. You want to say anything about that?
Well, excuse me. That's not really a bad thing either, if you think about it, Greg. Because if I was the Russians, I would be very nervous about our submarine launch capability getting smaller flight times, smaller decision-making times for the Russian leadership to decide what they're going to do. So I like the idea of, we have a triad, bombers, subs, and missiles, ICBMs, and they all play a vital role, and they all have a different role to play. And you can't just take out one leg and expect not to get hit by one or two of the other legs. Now, the Russians know where our land-based ICBMs are. They know where our bomber bases are, but they don't know where the submarines are. And that's a good thing. And that would give the Russians a lot of pause, because those Ohio class subs. It's a beautiful, beautiful system, and you just don't know where they're coming at you from, and that's not a bad thing.
I hope that's true, and I hope we can still communicate with them. I'm skeptical as to whether or not that'll be possible.
I will say the Nuclear Command Control Communications weapon system, it is now a weapon system, NC3. It is a lot of systems with a lot of redundancy, but it is going through different parts of it are going through upgrades. So you have NC3 systems using satellites and using land-based systems as well to make sure the President of the United States can get the message, the emergency war order message, out to his forces around the globe. And you also have ISR assets that are always looking down in certain places around the globe to make sure and to see if there's anything generating against us or any other threats against the United States.
It's all good stuff, but redundancy requires resilience against common cause failures, and a high altitude electromagnetic pulse could be a common cause failure. That's, I do work electronic system safety, so
yeah,
things I've
well, you worry about single point failure.
Yeah,
which is why you need redundancy.
Well, yeah, well, but you can have common cause failures that could go across the whole family. Anyway, common cause failures, single point failures are, they're closely related, but they're not exactly one and the same. But anyway, well, let's hope that we're covered. I'm really worried that our deterrence is not sufficient if the enemy gets the idea that he can take it all out with a surprise attack. So that's where we want to make sure we're not there. And I think that our forces may need to rethink that a little bit just to make sure that we can't get in that footing.
But to me, deterrence goes a little bit further than that from your weapon systems. It also, deterrence depends on the leader of the nation, if they view that leader as strong or weak. So that's that's something to worry about right now.
We've got a problem. We've got a problem, Houston.
We have a serious problem with American weakness right now, based on the man in the White House, with what we see going on, obviously, with Russian aggression, Chinese aggression, Iranian aggression in the Middle East, who have sworn to wipe Israel off the face of the map. So this is a very, very dangerous world. I am 51 years old. I grew up in the Cold War, and I don't remember the Cold War being this hot as we are right now in 2022. And it's a scary, scary world with, I'll call them near peer competitors of China as well. Yeah, so it's a very dangerous world, and America must always be ready for war. We used to talk about strength through peace, and that's something that I don't see happening with this particular administration that we have in Washington.
Yeah, I worry about these things.
I'm sorry, peace through strength. I had a little verbal dyslexia because I actually was dyslexic. Yeah,
I knew what you meant. That's cool. I'm sure.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Peace through strength. Well, I've told my audience many times, you don't ensure peace by being a weak kid on the playground. That gets your candy and your lunch money taken from you, and you get a few black eyes to boot. So that we're in a precarious situation there. We should never vote for weak leaders. But we've done that. We did that with Jimmy Carter. Where did that get us? The Iranian hostage crisis. As soon as Ronald Reagan was being sworn in for office, the Iranians were getting rid of those hostages as fast as they could get them out of their country.
Well, you also have to remember the Russians went into Afghanistan in December '79 when Carter was president as well. So, we were viewed as weak there. And then when Reagan came into office, we hit back in Afghanistan. We hit back against terrorists that attacked us, whether it was in Germany or Italy or took out Libya as well. We hit back against Libya. So
we civilized Muammar Gaddafi a bit, I believe, but the Democrats decided to take him out anyway after he gave up his nukes, which I think was probably unfortunate. That's a whole nother story, all the stuff that happened in Libya and Benghazi. But that's another topic for another day. Now, so we've got a lot of risk right now, and a lot of it stems from leadership. So what we do need is good, positive leadership in this country. You know, as a prospective governor, if you get elected, that can be a good launch pad for the presidency. So maybe we got to look at you as a long-term prospect.
Oh, sir.
But if you've got the leadership in mind, that may be what it takes. So definitely, I believe I could tie both your hands behind your back, put a blindfold on you to do better than the current man in office.
I got 2 cats that could do better than this guy in office.
I believe it. It's a shame. It's a shame. But you know, it's you know, your predecessor, he had some taste for that office at once upon a time, but he never really had much traction in it. But then again, he had his own history. I actually met Bill Richardson when I was going out to New Mexico as part of their space launch thing that we're trying. You know, they put in a space center there in New Mexico, and they were trying to lure companies to be involved in that. And I've had a little startup company of my own and some enterprises I was involved in. In fact, the mayor of Hatch, New Mexico, took me riding around in his car all over Hatch, you know, the city from the green chilies, you know. So, you know, I've had some good experiences out there in New Mexico. I've been to the museum in Alamogordo several times. And incidentally, I got something they really want, except they don't want to pay for it. I got the biggest pieces remaining of the DCX rocket in private collection. I've got the avionics bay and the intertank of the DCX rocket, and the rest of it's out there at that museum. You know, it was flown in New Mexico. That's where it was flown, but I got it here in my backyard. So I got some strong New Mexico connections. And as and with 40 acres in Arizona, I'm practically a neighbor.
Yeah.
In fact, it's not that far from New Mexico where the property is. So, yeah, I find New Mexico a very interesting place. I've been through it several times. I used to go to Alamogordo for stuff I'd work on, in Albuquerque, and I bought a set of crutches and want some Truth or Consequences. So,
Yeah, well, Spaceport there is in Truth or Consequences, and it has been a complete disaster for the
yeah,
taxpayer in New Mexico. In fact, recently in the news, I don't know if you saw this, but the chief financial officer came out and was outing our governor and other elected officials for corruption. We had Richard Branson here try to go to space. He did not make it to the official line to go to space like they're doing over in Texas, launching, I think it's Blue Origin over there. I just actually flew over Spaceport a couple of weeks ago when I was heading to a campaign stop. And it's just, you know, I think we're in the hole about $250 million here
ooh,
in New Mexico. But we have so much potential because we do have White Sands Missile Range. We have 3 Air Force bases. We are, you know, Bill Gates started Microsoft here in Albuquerque. This is where the nuclear age started here in New Mexico. You know, so many things have started in New Mexico, and unfortunately, a lot of those things have left. But, you know, when I'm governor, there's a lot of things that we have to fix in regards to these incredible, disastrous state investment policies that are based on corruption with Spaceport, the movie industry. We're very, very big in the movie industry, but we're losing over 50 cents on the dollar here in New Mexico. So all that stuff needs to be renegotiated. And right now, New Mexico, we have the highest unemployment in the nation. The FBI rated us as the most dangerous state to live in. We've been rated as the worst state to live in. We're last in education, first in high school dropouts. We have the highest child poverty rate, high suicide rate. We have an open border here. Crime is out of control. Very
that's
poor
like
state.
you got a woke administration. That's kind of endemic to all your woke states with woke governors and woke leadership. You know, New Mexico, Arizona, but California, Colorado. No, okay, well, a little bit. Colorado's fallen in that, but not yet. They haven't fell into it too deep yet. But what I'm trying to say is California, Washington State, and Oregon. You know, they got their issues.
Yeah.
And you know, you go northeast.
Yeah, and you know, we're actually a very rich state when it comes to natural resources. You know, we're the #2 in the nation for oil and gas production, and yet the governor here is attacking oil and gas by putting more and more regulations on them, where they're leaving and going down to going across the state line in Texas, Oklahoma, up to North Dakota. Because we here in southeast New Mexico, I live outside of Albuquerque in Rio Rancho. But Southeast New Mexico, as you know, has the Permian Basin. And we were energy independent during the Trump administration. It's oil and gas funds roughly 45% of our general fund here. And it's under attack because this administration forced down our throats a Green New Deal called the Energy Transition Act. And it's awful of what it's doing to people. I call New Mexico an island of poverty in the Southwest because the states around us, you're in Arizona sometimes. We have Texas, Colorado, Oklahoma, and Utah. They are all prospering, and we're hurting bad here. It's a very tough place to live. People have lost hope here, and I'm running for governor to bring them back their hope and bring them back their freedoms, because we were one of the most locked down states for COVID here. And we have one of the highest vaccination rates, one of the highest death rates, and one of the highest infection rates. And under this governor during the lockdown, Greg, we lost over 40% of our small businesses here.
Lord, that's tragic. There's no reason, you get the brain power in New Mexico with the White Sands Missile Range. You've got a lot of brain power out there. You've got some good universities. I've been to the campus, University of New Mexico. I've seen a lot of resources, and they have a lot of background in the sound and rocket program and things like that. I've been all over the university down there, and the talent in your state is great. You have good people there. I enjoyed the people I met in New Mexico, friendly, down to earth people. You've got the resources. There's no reason that New Mexico couldn't be one of the top states in the nation, except for the kind of administration you've had. And that whole spaceport fiasco should not have went broke. I mean, if they couldn't have made it work in the first place, they shouldn't have funded it. I'm a space guy, but I believe you got to make a profit or have something's got to return. It wasn't well planned, well thought out, and too much corruption obviously seeped into the equation. I do appreciate that the mayor of Hatch showed me around. I think a lot of the people down there at that level were trying to do their best for their communities, and a lot of people got kind of hornswoggled into that deal there. And we didn't see from the group I was with that, even though we were promised a lot of prospects and cross breaks, we didn't get a case where it really added up for us at the time. So we didn't put anything out there. I mean, we thought about it real hard. It was close, but you can see there wasn't a whole lot of anybody rushing out there to make it happen, but it could have, and it might in the future. But you really got to research that with more people than just Richard Branson. You got to go way beyond. It can't be all about Richard Branson. You got to have a broader appeal to make that work.
Well, you hit it on the head there about the people in New Mexico. They're amazing. And I would argue that New Mexico should be probably the most prosperous state in the country. And here's why. Like I told you, we have very rich natural resources in the ground here. And people should want to come to New Mexico because the weather here is incredible. The scenery is so beautiful. We have rich history here. Lots of different cultures. I'm a county commissioner in Sandoval County. We have 12 different pueblos and tribes, the second most in the country behind San Diego County. And then I would argue, Greg, is that nobody can compete with New Mexico because we have Los Alamos National Lab about an hour and a half from my house. And then you come down south, you have Albuquerque with Sandia National Lab, Kirtland Air Force Base, that has all these mission partners on there. We have the flagship university of University of New Mexico. Just go an hour south, you have Socorro, the best petroleum engineering school in the country at New Mexico Tech. And we're producing amazing petroleum engineers that are leaving the state and going to Texas and Oklahoma, North Dakota. And then I would argue you go a little further south, you have Alamogordo, which has Hollerman Air Force Base, White Sands Missile Range is there, White Sands National Park. A little further south, you have Las Cruces with New Mexico State, an incredible land grant university. We have 3 Air Force bases, 2 national labs here, amazing culture, history, beauty, food is the best food in the world, the best weather in the country. And yet we are in poverty, and it has got to change. We have more people leaving New Mexico than coming here. And right now, because of COVID, what happened to COVID, a lot of people are like leaving California and they're coming to New Mexico, and the housing market here is just exploded because of that. And a lot of New Mexicans can't afford to stay here.
Well, I've been to Sandia National Laboratories. I've been to Hollerman. I've been to Kirkland. You've got some great facilities there, a lot of good, smart people, and just the population in general. I met very friendly people there and good, like I said, down to earth, hardworking kind of people. So I was very impressed in New Mexico, with the people. And hey, you got great pecans too, by the way.
Well, and we got the best pistachios in Alamogordo in the world.
Yeah, yeah. And I've been to the Space Museum in Alamogordo. I've been to you guys had the rocket sled research out there. I always thought that was impressive. There's a lot of good research that was done in New Mexico. There's been there's a lot of good researchers out there, smart people. So I believe that with the right kind of people in charge, you can turn that state around and make it shine and really impress the country with it. And that might really wake people up to the differences between the big government and who always steps on the small guys. Our country built this greatness based on freedom. You got the representations of freedom behind you with George Washington crossing the Delaware and the Declaration of Independence being signed in those photographs. That's the basis of our freedom, a lot of it, and it's not appreciated too much today. But it's the small companies that hire most people in America. And these last several years, they've been walking heavy on the creators of jobs in the small companies. They've been walking heavily on the local peoples and trying to wrap it all up into big transnational organizations, companies, and trying to make everybody have to work for the man, be it the government or these big transnational corporations with their globalist approach that they've been pursuing. But the power in this nation, what's made this nation great, is the individuals. It's what the people can perform. And I know the people in New Mexico can do that. I've been there, met them. Like I said, I was very impressed all the way around. So I've got a lot of enthusiasm for New Mexico. I love visiting that state. It's a beautiful place, like you mentioned. I've been to Las Cruces. I've stayed in Las Cruces. I've been to conferences there. There's down to New Mexico University there. They used to have an annual space tourism conference for several years. I forget what they do there now, but I've been to several of those run by a lady named Pat Hines. I'll give her a shout out here if she's still out there doing that. But I really enjoyed my time there and what I got to do in that state. So I have, that's the way I'm met the previous governor and some of his administration. But you're right. You mentioned earlier his corruption, and that's the problem that Mexico's suffering under today. It needs new leadership, just like our nation needs new leadership. Tell us what you would do for New Mexico. What's your agenda?
Yeah, well, it's, just to get back real quick to what you said, it's all about leadership, having the right leaders in the right positions at the right time. And that's what we've been able to do here in my county. In 2016, when I retired from the Air Force and went into private industry as a nuclear consultant, I also ran for county commissioner and was the first Republican to ever win my seat and turn Sandoval County Republican. And what we've been able to do in Sandoval County is what I want to do for the state of New Mexico. We focused on economic development. We focused on targeting investing in small businesses and manufacturing technology. We helped reduce unemployment in Sandoval County down by 1/3 before the pandemic. I fought back against the red flag laws by passing a Second Amendment sanctuary county. I passed a right to work ordinance here, the first ever of its kind in the state of New Mexico. And I got it done in 10 counties around the state out of the 33 counties before Santa Fe killed it. And this governor killed it. I also just passed a resolution. You might know a little bit about this, of the 30-30 land grab, where the federal government will take 30% of the land. This targets Western states like, that I'm in right now in New Mexico. So check out the 30-30 executive order Joe Biden signed and our governor here signed. So I passed a resolution opposing that. And other counties, deep blue counties, Rio Arriba County has 3 county commissioners, all Democrats.
You know what? Let's go back to that 2030 30-30 thing. And there's also a 2050 one. They want 50% of the private land in their hands in 2050. A lot of people don't realize that the administration is passing these kind of executive orders and trying to push things. It goes back to the, that little adage that a certain organization has put out that you've probably heard about. it says that by the year 2030, you will own nothing. You'll have no privacy, and you've never been happier. What a bunk of crap.
That's a bunch of garbage. But the 30-30 is exactly what you said, because it's called 30-30, 50-50. So they take 30% of the land by 2030, which, by the way, they don't leave out tribal our tribal sovereign nation partners here either. This is targeted against ranchers and farmers and oil and gas and water rights here in New Mexico and around the country. But there's an additional 20% they're going to take for climate stabilization by 2050. So you see the 30-30, 50-50. So we're fighting that here in New Mexico. And that's one of the things you asked what I'm going to do as governor. And I've been around the state now for the past almost year to the date running for governor and telling New Mexicans in the first 7 minutes of a J-Block administration, I will sign executive orders banning 30-30, banning critical race theory in the state of New Mexico, mandating that boys will compete with boys and girls will compete with girls in school sports in the state of New Mexico, banning vaccine passports and forced vaccines in the state of New Mexico, securing our national border by sending the National Guard down there and creating a new law enforcement agency like Arizona and Texas has, a New Mexico Border Security Agency. This is why I have the endorsement of an incredible group called Veterans for America First. And I met with them, and the gentleman who is one of the lead officers in that organization is the man that built the wall during President Trump's administration. They have endorsed me. I will also never sign a bill that has any taxpayer money funding abortion in the state of New Mexico, because what Texas did with their abortion, anti-abortion law has really come over to New Mexico. We are the capital of the third trimester abortions in the United States. They come from all over the country here, and we're getting more business because of what Texas did. And I agree with what Texas did, but we're feeling the repercussions here in New Mexico. I will also, as governor, reimburse every church, business, and person that was fined under the governor's tyrannical COVID mandates, which she herself violated numerous times. And you can Google that as well. So those are some of the things that I want to do just, right away in a J-Block administration. And then we're going to revamp education. We're going to focus on trade schools. We're going to focus on partnering with private industry and government industry, where we're going to be pulling kids out of school at the junior, senior level, 1 or 2 days a week to go get hands-on training in industry and the academic training in schools, because we want to prepare students for what is needed to compete. We're not going to be talking about any of this, just crap going on. We're going to focus on getting our kids ready for school. I'm going to fight to get qualified immunity back for our law enforcement. I actually want to bring bail back to New Mexico. I want to make sure that people elect judges that are going to be tough on violent criminals. I want to make sure that we stop taxing our veteran pensions. I also want to take a look at getting rid of the state income tax, and definitely get rid of this tax scam here on small businesses called the gross receipts tax. We're only one of 2 states to have that. So there's a lot of things that I want to do as governor that I can do through the authority and power of the office, but there are many things I got to work through the legislature on as well. And this is why, I don't know if we talked about this earlier, but I just won the state pre-primary convention in Ruidoso, and I'm number 1 on the ballot on June 7th. And if you go to my website, blockfornewmexico.com, if you're looking for a conservative leader who has leadership in the military, private industry, elected office, I've never lost an election in the state of New Mexico. I've gone up against this tyrannical governor on numerous issues, and I will get the nomination with your help, and I will beat this governor who needs to lose her job for what she has done to the people of New Mexico.
All right, so do it for the state of New Mexico. If anybody that's got friends or family in New Mexico, you go to J-Block. What's your website?
It's block4fornewmexico.com. You can donate, you can volunteer, you can contact me, and we are in a fight for our lives here. I talk to donors across the state and around the country, and I tell people what we're going through here in New Mexico. It's bad. It is not good, and I want to make this place a beacon of prosperity and a beacon of freedom again, because we can do so much better here in New Mexico. The people deserve it.
Hey, how about this? All the states from Arizona back to Alabama and up north and around in this area, I can carry my nug with me. But when I get in New Mexico, I can't do that. But I-40 goes through New Mexico. Can you fix
Sure
that
does.
so I can comfortably travel through New Mexico?
I would love that. And we also need constitutional carry here as well.
Amen. That's what I'm talking about. Concealed carry, constitution carry, all that good stuff.
Well, Vermont has constitutional carry, which blows me away. But here in New Mexico, I mean, we love our guns, and we have some very dangerous places that you're going to hike because of the wildlife. And by the way, we're a very, very violent city. And I always tell people, well, the criminals have constitutional carry. Why can't we? It just makes no sense.
It anyway. It
exactly.
Just gives them the advantage, but they sure have an attitude adjustment when they know everybody else can have something in their pocket too.
It's called deterrence, Greg.
Deterrence, exactly. It's called being strong. It's called deterrence. It works on a personal level and on a national level. It's no different. So, wow, how long can you serve as governor of New Mexico?
So in 1994, a man named Gary Johnson, who's a friend of mine, defeated an incumbent governor, and Gary was the first two-term governor. And then Bill Richardson took over for 2 terms. Then Susana Martinez took over for 2 terms. Now Michelle Lujan Grisham has been there for 1 term, and we're ready to kick her out, which is, but we need a lot of help because you know how the left is. I don't know where they get all their evil money, but they love spending it on these politicians that do just awful things to people.
They get guys like Soros, I guess. Well, another thing. Oh yeah, one final thing. You've been talking about some technology that might help prevent voter fraud with blockchain. You want to say something about that?
Well, here in New Mexico, we don't have voter ID, which is something that we need desperately. And, we've had some issues with voter fraud here in New Mexico. Some interesting things have happened here. But basically, blockchain, it creates an audit trail of changes of any information on the voter. So your ballot, your information has to match different pieces of information to make sure that you are who you are. We have to have signature verification for absentee ballots. Absentee ballots should only be sent out upon request. We have to get rid of these drop boxes here. Those are a complete disaster and just wide open to fraud. So those are some of the things that we have to do. But, voter ID is something that's favored by the vast majority of Democrats and Republicans and independents together. That's not a partisan issue at all. People want voter ID. Election integrity is one of the most important things that Americans want. And we've seen the recent polling on that. We're not asking for much. I want to make sure I want a close election and close re-election because I'm a conservative Republican in a very blue district. And I want to make sure that people's vote counts and it's a secure voting process. And the people who are voting are supposed to vote and they are who they say they are and they're registered. We're doing same day registration here. The governor was just pushing this ridiculous bill to have, 16 and 17-year-olds vote here in New Mexico. That stuff has to stop. It's ridiculous. They're trying to steal the elections and control.
Wow. Well, I wish you the best luck. I'm hoping we'll see you spend 2 4-year terms as governor and turn that state around. It'll be a shiny example that everybody can then look at and go, wow, look what happened in New Mexico. Look how it flipped and got to be such a shiny penny. And maybe that'll teach lessons to the rest of the states for a better way to do business. And once you get done being governor in New Mexico, maybe we can run you up toward being a high office in DC. That you don't want it means you're the best guy for the job. We shouldn't send anybody up there that wants that job.
That's just not going to happen. I don't want to go to DC. I love it here in New Mexico. And by the way, I'm sure I'm not going to get everything I want to get done in 8 years. And I'm a term limits guy. I favor term limits and let somebody else do it because when you start spending too much time in Santa Fe or Washington, DC, you really lose who you are. And I don't want to be called colonel or commissioner or governor. I like just being called Jay. Down to earth. I come from a very humble background of, born into poverty back in New Hampshire. I've had many struggles in my life. I've never forgot where I came from. And that has stuck with me my whole time. And that sticks with me as an elected official here and a candidate for governor.
All right. Well, Jay, I appreciate your service that you've done for our nation. I appreciate what you're trying to do. I really wish you the best. Do you have a closing word, comment you'd like to say about where we're at today, or what you're doing planning to do for New Mexico? Whatever. Just if you want to make 2 comments, it's your time.
Well, I just want to thank you, Greg, for being on your show. And thanks for the interview and the time here with all those people watching. Thank you to those tens and hundreds of thousands of people watching your show. I appreciate that. And I appreciate, Greg, what you're doing by bringing truth and freedom and transparency to this country, because we don't have truth and transparency and freedom in this country, and we don't have it here in New Mexico. And I hope that people are waking up and seeing what the left has done to our country, what they've done to society. And there's so much to fix. And I would tell everyone out there, whether you're in New Mexico or any other part of the country, don't lose hope. Get out and vote. Get involved. You can do so many things for your country. If you want to go and work on a campaign, be a poll watcher, go run for school board, make sure you're doing a get out the vote effort, things like that. Because Ronald Reagan used to tell us that freedom is always one generation away from extinction. And this is a much different country that I grew up in as a kid in the 80s compared to what my children are seeing now. And I want my grandchildren to have the same freedoms that I had growing up. We have lost and paid so much treasure and blood over almost 250 years in this great nation. And we must always preserve freedom, and we must pay any price to preserve freedom. And that's what I'm trying to do here in New Mexico. So thank you, sir. And God bless you, and God bless everybody out there.
Thank you, sir. God bless you. Good luck. And I hope I'll be calling you Governor, Jay, in the not too distant future. So everyone, give us a consideration, do what you can to help Jay out here. He's trying to pave a new path, a good shining example for the future to show states how they can turn things around, states that are underground, underwater. All right, my friend. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. I thank everybody for watching, and have an awesome day. With that, I say, Greg out.